You know where you are!
This is Appetite for Distortion.
Welcome to the podcast, Appetite for Distortion, episode number 411. My name is Brando. Welcome to the podcast, Mr. Ben Apatoff. How are you, sir?
Doing well. Great to be here. Thanks, Brenda.
I'm excited that we can call this that Metallica episode, or just we're doing reviews. We're talking about your book, your upcoming book, Guns N' Roses Metallica. It's just I've often said, as obviously a diehard GN'R fan, and I've been able to go to shows since 2002, so the Buckethead era.
Yeah.
And I've seen whatever I can since then. And I'm not going to do another episode before they come to New Jersey, MetLife Stadium, where Metallica just was. So I'm going to leave off on a little cliffhanger. I'm going to do a review of that, of course. That's coming up.
Right.
But I never got to see the Use Your Illusion, GN'R, Metallica, double bill, infamous tour. So I'm just like, I didn't even ask you off the air, but I'm just curious right away. Did you go to any of those shows?
I did not. That is my dream show. I mean, those
Right?
are my two top bands. I love Guns N' Roses. I love Metallica. Just passionately about both. I'm writing a book about another band on that bill, obviously. So that's like my dream, was to go to that tour. I wrote a little bit about it in my book. I love their kind of sense of competition and the way they've changed with each other. Probably the thing that gets discussed most when it comes to the sort of Metallica Guns N' Roses thing is the video with James and the Rider, right? Where he makes fun of Axl's Rider in A Year and a Half in the Life of Metallica. But one thing I address in the book that I don't see a lot of people talk about is that on that tour, Lars gets very attached to Axl. And, in the book, I read a little bit about James, and I've got this gets in the chapter about James and Lars's friendship, and how, James is kind of feeling the heat. And he says, Axl has this thing that, Lars is just like attracted to. And like, I think he's like defensive and like a little hurt at how, Lars is like hanging out with Axl and gets the jacket like Axl and is like, wants to know what kind of a plane he has. And there's this kind of insecurity between the two biggest bands in the world over that I thought was kind of fascinating. But yeah, anyway, short of it, I wish I could have gone to that show. I've watched tape after tape after tape. Stories after stories, the Fade to Black, Burn, just like so much history behind that tour.
It is a dream show. We all played that kind of fantasy game of like dream shows. I was 9 when that came out. I was singing. My first concert was Ninja Turtles.
Oh, I remember that tour. Yeah,
coming out of your shells tour in Radio City.
Yeah.
So I mean, it just Metallica and GN'R weren't in my purview yet, but it was
Right.
it was something else. And that's why. And by the way, we should mention the name of your book that we're talking about, the Metallica, the 2495 book.
Yes.
And when did that come out?
It came out in 2021. It's a play on the 598 EP and the 1999 home video, when Metallica would put the price on their merch to keep retailers from overcharging. So I did that with the book. It's a book about Metallica's importance. It's the cliche that's totally true, is that I wrote the book that I wanted but never read. There were biographies and fact books and things like that, but I wanted a book about why Metallica matters and why they're important, how they change the world and how they change people's lives and how complicated they are, and how, I've got chapters about each member and how complex they are, and what's the philosophy of Metallica, the religion of Metallica, the politics of Metallica, and the live show of Metallica, the fandom of Metallica, the fashion of Metallica. So I really want to make like a book that both newcomers, diehards could like, about like why this great band is so important, and why they keep getting more and more puzzling and complex. I mean, as short of it is, I think that Metallica is like a permanent puzzle, right? And that's why we keep going back to them. They are endlessly confusing. And the more you learn about them, the, harder to pin down they get. And, the same way that like in school we read, the books that keep, raising questions like the Moby Dick or Metamorphosis or, stuff like that. We keep returning to bands like Metallica that constantly are still raising new questions years into their story.
Well, you're talking to a Guns N' Roses, a host of a GNR podcast. The amount of questions, and we're gonna talk at towards the end of the conversation about perhaps a new song on the way.
Yes. Yeah.
We will play on words there if I didn't make it obvious
No.
enough. But what went through my mind and why I'm excited to talk to you today, because for one, I want to talk about my first time seeing Metallica in 20
Oh, yeah.
years.
Mhm.
Only my second time seeing the band, and believe me, it's not going to be the last time, and I'm not going to wait 20 years. I don't know if Metallica is a tour for another 20 years, but you know what I'm saying.
Mhm.
But as because we spoke off the air about this. I do remember talking to you about that. You're from Brooklyn, or you live in Brooklyn, currently. So the commute for you to New Jersey, like, did you take public transport? Because
I
my
did.
okay,
And here I should reveal that I teach in New Jersey, so it's no big deal to me. I bring the book
look
on
at
the
you.
train, so I know the New Jersey Transit pretty well.
Oh, you
So yeah,
son of a beep.
it's
Okay.
fine with me. Mhm.
Oh, so that was nothing. Okay, so see,
Mhm.
that was the big thing for me. Then I'll ask, because my wife and I, we thought we left in time. We had to get a babysitter.
Mhm.
Our first time out without baby Brownstone, who Ben, you can attest to. I tried to have him be my co-host today, and it just wasn't happening. He was getting too twitchy, crying. I know when not to hold the baby during a podcast. I know when it's appropriate and when it's not appropriate. So it's
Doing a
like,
great job.
excuse me, here, take him.
Yeah.
Whatever. Another episode he'll be on. Perhaps say his first word.
Yeah.
Fuel, or Lars.
Mhm.
I guess I say
Oh
random.
yeah, something like
I say
that.
random rock phrases into his face. Slash.
Oh yeah,
Absurd.
yeah.
It's funny. But so we thought 2 hours would be enough. We missed Mammoth, but I've seen Mammoth, Wolfgang Van Halen with Guns N' Roses
Yes.
twice, or at least 1.5 times.
Yeah.
Being late for another one, and I love them. I think he's great voice.
Yeah,
Did you go early enough? Did you experience?
I
Because I
did.
didn't know this. I didn't know about the parking lot shows with Overkill. Like, I feel like
Yeah,
I missed out
I
on a lot.
missed that Prong and Overkill. I missed that, unfortunately. I like both those bands. I got there in time for Wolf. That was actually the first show I saw after the pandemic, because the first thing I went to was Guns N' Roses post-pandemic. So the first artist I saw was Wolf, and I saw him in Van Halen. I've kind of grown to love him. The song about his father, "The Distance Makes Me Cry." I think that he's developed as a very sort of engaging performer. He's used to like a crowd and a stadium. He's not like the natural rock star that Eddie Van Halen was, who was a great player, but also had this kind of like smile and dance moves. But I think that he has like enough kind of like showmanship and swagger to kind of carry the songs in a way that really impresses me when I see Wolfgang.
I expect even bigger things from him.
Yeah.
And let me just say this, because I can kind of hear the trolls in the back of my head. I spend way too much time online.
Mhm.
I don't mean to get on a soapbox. I mean, I'm short, but the amount of fat shaming that goes out on Wolfgang Van Halen that I read on just, wherever it is, you name the outlet, it's just, you're going to find some stupid dude bro who's like using it under the umbrella of, oh, I'm just concerned about his health. Just go fuck yourselves. Shut up.
Go fuck yourself. Seriously, like, dude, I
Like, you
can't
don't even
imagine, like,
know.
yeah, going through the thing he went through with his dad, and like, he just seems like to go through like that upbringing with a famous dad and then lose them and have like trolls and have all people saying crap about you. And it seemed like every interview seemed like the sweetest, coolest dude. And just
Yeah.
like, dude, go Wolfgang. Like, take my money. All respect for him, and he deserves all the success he's getting.
I agree. No, I absolutely do. But I wanted to say that because it's something that bothers me with Axel.
Yeah.
It's even started to bother me with Lars. Somebody posted,
Oh yeah.
there. Look, I'm not going to be a hypocrite. Like, there's a part of me, like, I love South Park, I love Family Guy, I like, certain type of humor that's inappropriate, those
Right.
celebrity roasts, whatever, but there's a time and place.
Mhm.
And somebody posted on one of my things about going to Metallica that it was a shirt that had Cliff and Lars,
Oh yeah.
and it said it should have been Lars.
Yeah.
That's not funny to me. That's
It's
not
not funny.
that's messed
I
up.
I I love offensive humor too. That's not to me, that joke, I read about this in the book too, is especially cruel to Cliff Burton's family.
Yeah.
Been so supportive. Like, it's not like a Lars joke. That's like making fun of like his father and mother, who are so supportive of Metallica, and like basically helped raise like fatherless James, and people, and they're just like the Burton family has been so. Can you imagine like being in the Burton family and seeing that shirt? It's such a cruel thing. Another thing I say in the book too about Lars, I mean, Lars obviously gets like a ton of crap, and I say that people who complain about Lars's drumming are usually the same people who will tell you that David Lee Roth can't sing or Kurt Cobain can't play guitar, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like there are some people who are technically very gifted and don't have the chemistry. Lars, is not, he's not Dave Lombardo, he's not, um, you know, uh, Joey Jordison, but yeah, he's got a lot of chemistry, and he's got a great sense of songmanship in his drumming that I do appreciate.
I couldn't agree more. David Lee Roth again is another one that I defend. Like, he was never meant to be Sammy Hagar. He's not Pavarotti. He's a showman.
Absolutely.
That's
He's a
Van
showman.
Halen. That's so
Great showman. Yeah.
okay, so we're on the same page here. So let me just so when I finally get there, I know I miss Wolf. I know I was gonna miss him.
Right.
I was I only went to one night, the Friday night,
Mhm.
August 4th, and because just because we can find a babysitter for one night,
Right.
money, working, whatever. But I had to make sure I went to go see Pantera.
Yes.
And also, I want to say, it's not a soapbox thing or not.
Right.
Don't be like, oh, it's not Pantera.
Right.
We all know
Mhm.
it's the horrific things that poor, family, the Abbott family,
Mhm.
going through what Dime went through, and Vinny being taken young. We all are aware.
Right.
Charlie Benanti and Zach Wild are their friends. They have the support of their family, of the Abbott family. And it's like, for someone like me who never got to see Pantera,
Mhm.
and thankfully I caught the last half of their set. So I got
Oh
to
yeah.
hear Cowboys from Hell and Walk and I'm Broken. And it's just to be able to sing those songs live
Yeah.
and feel the songs live. That was amazing. Amazing for the fans.
Oh, absolutely. And I have not gone public with this because I'm not like a troll, but like I definitely like seeing that lineup, seeing those thoughts. My first thoughts were like, this isn't Pantera, this isn't Dimebag, this isn't Vinny. Like,
I
I don't
understand.
know, like morally if that's good, but I was like, you know what? I know that as soon as that show starts, I'm gonna know every word. I'm gonna sing along. It's gonna be great. And yeah, it was great. And I know it's not, Pantera per se, but like you said, you can't pick a better substitute than Zach Wild and Charlie Benanti. Um, Phil is, for all the crap we give Phil, a lot of it he deserves. He is one of the best frontmen of all time, and you can see that when he's there. He came like right when he started. He's just like so good with the crowd piece. Like he's very like he had this gruff like but entertaining persona. Like you've, I guess I hadn't. I've been on a Pantera kick again recently, but I hadn't thought again and go like, oh yeah, that's why they were so huge in the '90s. Like he's a great frontman, and they were awesome. They sounded great, and I never got to see them either. I remember like when they tour again, I'll go see them, and then we all know what happened. But yeah, I had a great time seeing Pantera. I figured like as soon as it starts, all my problems will go away. But yeah, they were great. Yeah,
And Phil did sound great,
he did sound
with
great.
everything that he's been through, and obviously he's said and done some stupid shit.
Yep.
But I'd like to think that Metallica, the family, the Pantera family wouldn't embrace him now if he was like that person, like
Yeah.
somebody who really is, and you know what I mean? I know this is a larger discussion, but if you're that like hateful of a person and you give BS apologies, I don't think this is going to come together the way it
Right.
has. It's so, but we don't know these people. So I'm just kind of speculating,
Yeah.
of course.
We don't know those people. We're speculating. I just there's so many questions I have about what Diamond Vinny would be saying or doing today. But
Yeah.
you think about the bad blood between Guns N' Roses, and just like they got over it and put that shit. And I just like I'm not going to assume. I'm not going to say this definitely would have happened, but I could see them putting that behind them and putting it back for the love of, the music, which is great. And they're just like, oh yeah, fucking Hostile, and oh yeah, just like Cowboys from Hell, and they were awesome.
And you're absolutely right. And GNR is a good example. I know no one has died, so that's the difference with
Yeah,
GNR. But I mean, Axel called Slash a cancer
I
at
remember
one
that.
point. And look at them now. They're like,
Yeah,
two biffles,
yeah,
BFFs up on stage. And, but I know for every one of those, there's like Skid Row. But I mean, Axel,
yeah.
I mean, you just never know what time is going to do.
Mhm.
And if this is the situation that came about, I think it just gives a lot of people a chance to heal and have like a release with this aggressive music.
Yeah, definitely. And on that note, like I'd go see them anytime because they're like my guys because I love Guns N' Roses. But especially with this tour now, and people are like, okay, like the set list should change up more and stuff like that. It's like, sure, I am not going to complain because I never thought this would happen. Like being
Right.
like a Guns N' Roses, like I will happily go see Duff and Slash and Axl and the band on stage together whenever they're in town. Because throughout, high school and college and the years after that, I never thought I was certain they'd never get back together. And in 10 years, they might not be together. They might not sound so good. Whatever chance, I do not want to miss a chance to see Guns N' Roses again. So I'm gonna keep going.
That's how I've been since 2002
Yeah.
when Axel came back at the MTV Movie Awards with the long braids, and
Yep.
they announced that show. And thankfully, I got to see them because they
Oh yeah.
canceled the tour the next day.
Mhm.
But just you never know when's the last time.
Yeah.
You just know you just don't know for a variety of reasons. It seems like Guns N' Roses are not going to break up the way they did before, but you just don't know
Oh yeah.
with age and what they're you just don't know what the plans are going to be.
Oh
But
yeah.
it was kind of funny, as we kicked off the conversation with the infamous Metallica GNR tour, that the closest I would ever be to that, I don't know if you thought the same thing, when you're walking into MetLife Stadium and they have those you know, uh, big screens of what's to come, events to come, and they had Guns N' Roses. I'm
Yes.
looking at like I should remember. I have this date memorized by now, but August 15th, and of course, the big tour logo and everything. And it's just so funny, a big Guns N' Roses advertisement outside a Metallica show. And I'm
Yeah.
like, but this just to think, 30 years ago, these mega bands toured together. But let's talk
Yeah.
about the show itself, because
Mhm.
I guess, as I said, this was my first time seeing them in 20 years. So only my second time. How
Right.
many times have you, Mr. Metallica book? How many times have you seen them live?
I have seen them between 10 and 20 times. I have not, for a long time, I was actually kind of late to see them live because I'd be in college and they would come to Virginia, or I'd be in Virginia and they'd come to New York. And it took me
Okay.
a while to like see them, and they had some trouble and a break between albums. So I was kind of late to see. I didn't see them officially until the Death Magnetic tour, but
Oh, wow.
I see them every chance I get. I definitely was excited for both nights of this. I went both nights. My concern going into this is that like I know I'm gonna love two nights of completely different set lists,
Mhm.
but I was also kind of thinking like, what about that guy or that girl who is only get one chance to see Metallica and is like, oh, I didn't get Enter Sandman or something like that. Like, because I love Enter Sandman. I also don't need to hear it every time because I want to hear the deep cuts because I'm a fanatic. But I thought they did an excellent job of doing something. I guess they do an excellent job of doing something that both the diehards and the casual fans would like, which they tend to do live anyway. But I was thinking like divide among 2 days, like they're not gonna play like that many like the biggest hits every night, but they were yeah, they debuted new songs. They on both nights they played a bunch of the hits. They played a bunch of deep cuts, and they're just so engaging um as arena performers. You saw like some of the other bands who were like very good with that 360 stage, and Metallica like prowls on it like it's home to them. When Metallica is a 360 stage, they're like, it feels like very natural to them the way they do it. They've got this like chemistry with that, and they're very engaging to the crowd. This has been talked about before, but you don't really think of them as very sort of rock star persona. Like I remember I took my partner to see Guns N' Roses, and she was like, I've never seen anyone else who are like so naturally like rock stars like that. Those are people who are like born to be rock stars. And I don't think, and this is not a knock on either of those bands, I don't think the Metallica has that same vibe. They've got more of a sort of like dude vibe, right? And
Okay.
but they have sort of like a really incredible, in the book I say Metallica is probably the biggest band of our generation that does not have any member who you could turn to a Halloween costume,
Right.
right? They don't have, they don't have like a distinct like fashion or look or anything like that. They're very kind of like every man in their persona, if not in their wallets, but they somehow have like this thing that connects with them, even though they're not very like rock star type rock stars in their look and the way they carry themselves.
Yeah, that's a good point because I've used that as an example as, why do a GNR podcast other than they're my favorite band, but because you can go to anybody, whether it's an old metalhead or it's a cheerleader that's, middle to high school,
Oh yeah.
they know Axel and Slash, they are Halloween costumes. And you could do the same thing with Kiss. And
Yep.
you're right, Metallica, that name is as iconic as any of them.
Right.
But you're not dressing up, you're not seeing little kids in James's Fu Man, mustache. That would be kind of cool if they did that.
Yeah.
Or a receding hairline for Lars
Right.
or anything like that. They're not
Right.
doing that. And who am I to make fun of that? I've lost mine a long time ago.
No
Uh,
worries.
so it is interesting. And in what I guess forgot and what I was reminded of quickly of just how heavy I guess the sound is no matter where you are, because it was Giant Stadium that I saw them in 2003, when it was not known as Giant Stadium, not MetLife Stadium currently.
Right.
By the way, I think I totally forgot because it was a summer sanitarium tour that I saw.
Oh,
I totally forgot I saw Limp Bizkit. Completely blocked
right.
it out of my mind that they
Oh
were
yeah.
on that bill.
That was Deftones too, right? Deftones in Lincoln Park, is that right? That was like
Yeah, Linkin
big
Park,
metal bill.
Mudvayne, Deftones.
Oh, wow, yeah, man.
It was a great show,
I'm sure,
but
yeah.
it was around St. Anger
Mhm.
too. So I got to experience St. Anger and Frantic live.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So going to this, it's like, okay, so what went through your mind? Because this was, and we'll talk about the stage as well, a
Mhm.
very unique experience. Because for Guns N' Roses, we'll talk about the set list, we talk about new music, will they or won't they, or maybe
Right.
even guest appearances, it happens.
Mhm.
But they're not doing a 2-night event, and they're not doing this special stage that I wanted to talk about a little bit more intimately as well.
Right.
What was your, because I told you at the beginning, I got to go to, I can only afford one ideally. I mean, I
Right.
can practically afford two if I wanted to, but my kid's probably going to go to college, I think. I wanted to go at least for the Pantera night.
Yes.
And I knew going in, I'm like, all right, there are songs I'm going to miss and I'm not going to hear. And I left being happy, like with everything that they played from that night one, from the beginning, where Creeping Death, when it goes out of Ecstasy of Gold, that very dramatic intro that's so cool to this day,
Yeah.
Ecstasy of Gold, and then at the end with Master of Puppets, I told my wife because she knows Metallica, but she doesn't. She might be the casual fan, like I talk about the casual GNR fan that will freak out about Sweet Child of Mine,
Oh yeah.
but doesn't give a shit about anything new.
Right.
So there's a difference of like the kind of fan within the fandom, as you know, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So we were playing in the 2 hours there. I played like an hour and a half of Metallica and like a half an hour of Pantera for her.
Nice.
And so like I said, I just want to hear Battery, which I heard.
Yeah.
Fade to
great.
Black was great. They hear
Great.
James
Yeah.
say,
That speech.
he
Yeah.
still loves this song, Fade to Black.
Yeah.
And what really kicked it up for me that I didn't even think about, and I'm wondering if you heard it on because you said your first concert with Metallica was Death Magnetic,
Mhm.
which is an underrated album.
Yes. Agreed.
Underrated.
Yeah.
The Day That Never Comes. That is, wow. The Day That Never
Yeah.
Comes is that honestly is one of the not popular, like, or I should say old school classic Metallica songs that I listen to the most.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
The
It's a
Day
great
That
one.
Never Comes. So I left being happy. However, my wife got, she knew Master of Puppets.
Mhm.
She got Nothing Else Matters, even though Kirk had to restart
Oh
that.
yeah.
which, by the way, totally cool, right? Like you
Totally
mess it up.
cool. I love that they're one of the biggest bands that can still bring spontaneity to an arena show. You know, they
Mhm.
do little, jams, they get things mixed up. I love that they still change it up that much because a lot of people at this stage just like, night for night, strictly the same show, but they can change it up and, screw things up, and it doesn't always work, but it's always different. It's always singular.
So I did like that. Oh, and also, what about so Rob and
Oh yeah.
Kurt, they do like a different jam every night. That was kind of
Yeah.
weird. I'm
That
not
was
gonna lie.
weird. And because on the tour before this, what they would do was they would do a different jam and they would play something from an artist from wherever the town they were in was. Like I saw them in Philadelphia and they did that money, 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 money. They did that song. They do like so they just jammed on like, whoever, someone from New Jersey, someone from, Pittsburgh, they kind of do that. So I figured they're gonna do this too. And at the end, they're like, yeah, that one was called Rose Avenue. I was like, Rose Avenue, is that like a New Jersey song? I looked up, it was like just something they've jammed on. So it's a totally different thing. I saw an interview with Rob where he said that the plan was to sort of jam on classic Metallica deep cuts, but then people thought like, oh, James is gonna come out and they're gonna actually play the song, and like, okay, so that's not gonna happen. But yeah, I guess that's like a different variation on the sort of jam thing that they were doing on previous tours.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, this is just for you. And it was,
Yeah.
it was awkward. I love watching Rob,
Oh, I love Rob. Yeah.
he
Um,
has that great stage presence too that I thought was perfect for that in the round kind of
yeah.
thing. Where were
He
your
does.
seats, by the way?
I was on the floor both nights.
Oh, look at you. In
I
the circle or outside?
outside. Yeah, I had some friends who were inside. I was just like, wow, that looks incredible. I met Rob on Saturday. He was a very nice guy. So yeah, but I love the way they all kind of like bounce off each other. There's in Some Kind of Monster when Bob Rock is playing bass for them and on Saint Anger, he's clearly an incredibly gifted musician, producer, and stuff like that. And it's also just like not quite right. They need like Jason has bass chemistry with them, Cliff has bass chemistry with them, Robert has bass chemistry. Kind of like with the current Guns N' Roses lineup, I think they definitely like someone who is talented but also has like a big stage persona like that, because all three of their bassists have been like incredible performers on top of
Yeah.
that. So yeah, I love the way that they all click together, and the way that Rob has this big smile and no pretenses, and James can like open his heart up about Fade to Black, and Lars is like a showman drummer, and Kirk is just like this sweet, nice stoner who overcame so much to be in this place he is now. And I love seeing, also just like on a personal note, when you write a book about them, and like I've always been a huge fan, but like when you write a book, it's like you're in the trenches with them, and like you're losing sleep over Metallica, and you're getting teary about Metallica, and you're like about to lose your job over Metallica, and like just going through that like intense experience, like, and then when you see them, you're like, I was in the trenches with you, like my guys. You're just like, and that it just really changes the way you see them if you've had to like labor over a big tough labor of a book for many years. So that's
Oh yeah. I mean, I certainly don't look at Guns N' Roses the same as I did pre-podcast, and I
exactly
know
like
it's different, but I mean, I
yeah,
know, just to invest that much time into a singular
exactly.
thing is, yeah,
Yeah,
that's definitely absolutely
changes
gonna happen. Uh,
everything, getting that
uh,
invested in. Yeah. Mhm.
for sure. But to circle back though, so yeah, my wife, even though Kirky messed up,
Mhm.
she loved Nothing Else Matters. They were all
Oh
the
yeah.
songs she was familiar with. I mean, and I wasn't familiar with 72 Seasons. I just know
Yeah.
the singles. I
Mhm.
haven't really spent time. I hate to say it, and I feel bad because I usually am like this with Metallica. New record, I listen to it. I guess with the baby, I just haven't had the time just to sit down and listen to it.
Right.
So other than those, I don't expect her to know.
Mhm.
But she's like, I felt like we didn't get all the hits, but she knew there was a second night. I'm like, you obviously didn't get Enter Sandman.
Right.
It didn't happen. So actually, even before we get into the second night,
Mhm.
so I'm above. So my perspective, because I want to hear your perspective from the lower level. I get to see the mosh pits from above, which is kind of cool. These little like crop circles begin to form of people, on the outside and even in that middle pit. And I forget what song it was on, but like 20 giant beach balls comes out
Oh yeah,
out
that
of
was a Seek
nowhere.
and Destroy. Yeah.
I Seek and Destroy, yeah. So I thought that was so fun, for the fans, even though like half of them just got stuck on the stage anyway.
Right.
And I felt left out because I was up in the nosebleeds in my handicap seats, section 314 or something like that. I'll be closer for Guns N' Roses. I got section one.
Oh, cool.
I had to. I'm like, I got to spend a little bit more money to get better handicap seats
Oh yeah.
because I'm always in the nosebleeds. Like these concerts are really expensive. I'm somebody who does buy merch. I did not buy merch this time because I would have missed Pantera. And the line was too long after Pantera. It was like I would have missed some of Metallica. It just would have sucked. So whatever. I missed out on merch this time around. So it was a cool visual and optic from above those giant towers. Showing the because they look like ants from above.
Oh yeah.
They do. Like it is what it is. But they were 80,000. Correct me if I'm wrong. 80,000 people there.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Out of the max, which was like 80 to like 50, like 500, whatever. So they were, short a couple thousand of it being a sold out show. It'll be interesting to see what Guns N' Roses does. So, I mean, it was an event. So I think to have that in the round, to have those unique kind of things to look at, these cool, not just, they were different than regular speakers. They were like, I don't know, outposts. They were towers. And then to look down and see all these beach balls bang, it was cool from that perspective, I think, to have like nosebleeds, to have shitty seats.
Right.
And people asked this, because I shared a couple videos online. They were sometimes like your view was obstructed. However, when you're in the round, they're moving around.
Yes.
And I'm not talking about Lars, James, and Rob. I'm not just talking about James, Rob, and Kirk just walking around. Lars, maybe more than I do. It would go dark, pitch dark. His drum kit would disappear and then reappear like somewhere else in the circle.
Yeah.
So did he have multiple drum kits underneath?
Yeah, he had another drum kit. Yeah.
That's wow, man. The production value is so fucking cool.
Yeah, it is. And they they definitely pick away. And like I didn't see everything from the floor, the way that like some people in the seats would get, in the nosebleeds would get a different perspective, but they definitely play to everybody in the arena. They definitely are, this show is for the people in the far back who, just saved up, to see us. And they definitely don't let anyone out, or just like, we're only gonna play to the crowd, the close people. They definitely like try to make it special for everyone, I think.
Yeah, I think they did. They acknowledged us up in the higher seats. The only thing, because somebody asked me, what do you think is a bigger spectacle now, Metallica or Guns N' Roses? And look, I can be honest, I'm not biased. From what I saw yesterday, that is a bigger spectacle. And Metallica does way more press. GN'R does next to none. Metallica's on all the talk shows. They're doing Jimmy Kimmel. They're playing with puppets. The master of puppets. They're going to Antarctica to do shows. They're doing all these crazy things. So I think they're a bigger spectacle. However you want to interpret that spectacle, doesn't mean they're a better band or anything like that.
Right.
But GN'R is just it's going to be a big rock show. It's not going to be a spectacle like Metallica was. So, I was just really impressed. And there was part of me that if I didn't have work that night, if I didn't have a 3-month-old, I would have said to my wife, let's go back. Even with the bullshit traffic. I thought it was a great time. So you went back. So I guess, how did you feel about night one? Well, how were you feeling about night two? Were you amped up? Were you tired? You had a day in between.
I was amped up. I got tired because I pre-gamed in the parking lot, and I met up with, you might know him. I met up with Brandon from Metallicast and the Metallica podcast. So
shout out to I couldn't meet up with him, but we tweeted.
Yeah, so
we're X'd at each other.
So he well, that's right, they call it that now. But he so I did his show and was like, oh, let's meet up in the parking lot. And that's so did that and came in and it was zonked by the time I got there, but they opened with Whiplash and they played Blackened, which is just like incredible to me. Played I'm a 90s kid, so I loved hearing like Wherever I May Roam and The Unforgiven and things like that. They played Whiskey in the Jar, they played For Whom the Bell Tolls. It's just it was like they debuted Too Far Gone from 72 Seasons. It was another sort of like, you know, the hits were and the deep cuts all spread out enough to just engage everybody. It was a great show. They were awesome at night too.
I loved seeing and how I know it was an event, and I guess I'll find out again. So stay tuned for GNR. Of course, I'll do a review and
Right.
take as many pictures and videos as my shitty iPhone allows. But I loved seeing in my Facebook timeline just the amount of people I knew that were going,
Oh yeah.
and people that even just said, you know what, I went on Friday. Fuck it, I got tickets for night two. I won't sleep on Monday. And I'm like, that's really cool, man.
Oh
That
yeah.
this band has lasted this long, and James just turned 60,
Yeah.
and he's just out there just killing it. He sounds fantastic.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Really does sounds good. And I
Yeah.
will say this because my wife had to make a point when we first saw Guns N' Roses of how good looking Duff was.
Oh yeah.
James Hetfield is also a handsome man, according
A
to her.
handsome man, and also I like how unabashedly old he looks too. He's a very handsome guy, and like I just got the 72 seasons when it came out. And, like the liner notes, he like looks old and he's gray and he's like very like he's a very handsome old man, but he he's not like getting like hair plugs and facelifts and things like that. I think he aged well, and he's got kind of like a older nobility to him on stage now worked that he worked well as a frontman.
Agreed. Aging gracefully. And she
Yeah.
made a point, which is, it's again, it's so funny. That's why I love talking to so many different people, no matter
Mhm.
how big of a hard fan you are. Cause she's like, they dress so unassuming, like they're
Yeah.
not
Oh,
rock
totally. Yeah.
stars. And that's kind of what we were talking about at the beginning.
Yeah.
And I know she was kind of referencing Axel without referencing Axel, with the amount of rings he wears. And, I think he's changed his style a little bit. Whenever you see him out, he's in a really cool suit.
Right.
So he's not dressing in the Fu Manchu mustache and
Hmm.
the hat that covers his eyes all the time. So I mean,
Right. Yeah.
he's dressing his age, but yeah, with James, it's just like he could be in oh, what was Sons of Anarchy? Like he can
Oh
just be
yeah. Hmm.
like a character in the back of that
Totally.
background.
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely. I remember my book talk. I think you might know my friend Catherine Turman too.
Oh yeah, Catherine shot out who did a fantastic job. Did you watch that documentary?
No, I need to. I know exactly what you're talking about. I want to watch it. I need to see that. Yeah.
Yeah, so she, Catherine Turman, who has wrote the book, she was on the episode a couple times. Oh, and this is a perfect segue for you because she was my guest co-host when we had Ernie C on from Body Count.
And that episode is quoted in my book. So you're in the bibliography page there. So I've got.
Did I know that? Did you tell me that?
I not. This is the first time telling you that.
Oh,
So
okay.
I mean, I interviewed Ernie myself, and I got some quotes from him. But yeah, I used that interview as a source in the book. So that's in the book,
Oh,
and
that's
and
cool.
Catherine stuff too. So she's wonderful.
Oh, I love that. So, and Catherine Turman, shout out because she is one of the people in the I Want to Rock documentary
Yes.
on Paramount Plus, where soon, because this is funny,
Mhm.
I've had every single person on that podcast that was, the focal point, whether it's Nick Sabo, Kip Winger, Catherine, who else am I missing? John Corabi.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I've had every single person on there, but Janet Gardner from Vixen.
Oh.
However, that is going to change next episode.
Oh, congrats. I'll tune into that. Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
funny.
But
It's sorry, go ahead.
oh, no, no worries. Catherine's just great. She's been like such a mentor. She really helped me with the Metallica book and the Body Count book. But I was talking with her a while ago about how James had a very small part in the Ted Bundy movie that Joe Berlinger from Some Kind of Monster directed. The not Zach
Efron?
Zac Efron, yeah, Zac Efron movie. I almost said Zac Efron.
I hate that I know Zac Efron.
Yeah, no, no, and who was very good in it, a very good Ted Bundy. But one thing I liked about that role, and that James is not an actor, but he can successfully disappear into a blue collar cop.
Yeah.
You know, like you could not give Steven Tyler that part, right?
No.
Like, that's not a policeman. That's Steven Tyler. He's a rock star. But
Right.
James, in his small part, he's not an actor, but that's part of his persona is that he can disappear into kind of like blue collar parts like that. And I think you see that when he's on stage in Metallica too.
I think so too. And I thought this was cool because that morning, I had filled in most of the week because I work mainly from home and that's where I'm recording right now. But sometimes I go in to fill in, produce the morning show at Q1043.
Oh, cool.
Through iHeartRadio. And that morning, so I was producing GN'R, the rock and roll morning show. And the day before, however, right after the Thursday morning show, Jim had to go down to MetLife Stadium to interview Lars in the basement, not the basement, but like one of the visiting locker rooms at MetLife Stadium. And that was, maybe you read the article where Lars was talking about how, you know, all these years later, having fans, how much it means to them. And they spoke about the kid prices, how they actually have special kid prices, which I think is brilliant. And I hope other bands follow suit, you know, because believe me, I would have loved to have taken Baby Brownstone to Metallica.
Oh yeah,
But I think 3 months old, I don't need social services calling me. Maybe maybe around a year we can start taking it to some like,
right.
I don't even know, Raffi or something. We gotta break them in slowly to metal. But
Right,
believe me,
yeah.
it's the first chance I can get without, you know, being dad shamed. I'll take him to a metal show.
Right.
Of course. And I lost my complete train of thought there, just thinking
Oh,
about it.
talking about James, Catherine, Vixen, taking people to metal shows, taking kids to shows.
It's because
Lars,
I
Lars,
hear him crying in the background, and it gets totally. I'm like,
oh, I'm
shit.
sorry.
Like I'm like
You're
shit.
talking about the Lars interview and the kids.
Oh yeah, yes. Thank you. So within that, since it was pre-recorded, because we were giving away tickets to go see, because what Metallica is doing, they are putting out a movie, but it's not a movie. I don't know if other radio stations are doing this or how. Like, we were giving away tickets to go see, but the live broadcast of their show in
Dallas.
Austin, I think.
I think it's
Dallas or
I'll double
somewhere in
check,
Texas.
Texas. Yes.
To go see that in movie theaters, which is cool. And then the grand prize winner of those winners was going on Sunday. So we were doing that all week. So we were giving away like a couple tickets each day. It would prizes, you know, different games, and one game would be just a 25th caller, you know, make it easy.
Right.
So Jim is telling Lars this, you know, we're going to take the 25th caller. Lars is like, really? Like, do you really have somebody going through and like hanging up on like 24 people? He's like, yeah, Brandon is, and he pre-recorded this, and it made me feel so. I laughed. I looked at him in studio with this. He's like, Brandon's back in studio, you know, and that's exact. So he said my name to Lars. That's my claim to fame.
Wow.
But it's so funny. That's what I've been doing because I've been in radio for 20 years. You know,
Man.
caller 1, click. Caller 2, click. And
Wow.
when I get up to caller 24 or whatever the last number it is, the one before it, caller 24, so close, and it always hang up.
Oh God.
I never hear back what they say all these
man.
years later. So yeah, there are people actually doing that.
Radio was my gig throughout like right after college too. So I'll have to talk to you someday about that, because I'm sure you have stories about like getting callers and things like that. It was
it's
totally
so
my
many.
college. That was gonna be my career for a while, was radio. So that was definitely did a lot of that and got some stories there.
I love radio. That's always my passion, and it's blossomed into this podcast. Podcasts have come out of nowhere, so I like to think I take my old school radio training and put it into this amoeba lawless world of podcasting.
Oh yeah.
Thing. But so I look up to people like GN'R, who's in the rock and roll, in the Radio Hall of Fame.
Oh, okay.
And you know, and he said how Lars was like the nicest guy that you could meet. So that's really cool to hear, because he would be honest. He would be like, Lars was a dick. No,
totally, yeah.
He didn't say that.
I remember hearing that very early on, because I remember like having my distant relationship with Metallica and thinking like, oh, Lars is like the mean one and stuff like that. But hearing like early on, like my metal journalist friends would be like, no, Lars is my favorite. Like Lars talks, he remembers you, he's good. And just thinking in hindsight too, like Lars early on hustled his way into like being friends with Motorhead and Diamond Head and bands like that when he was a kid, and he had like they had nothing to like gain from being friends with him. So it's like he must be really charming to like kind of get that to move up that well in the world of metal. Like he's like, yeah, I just hung out with Diamond Head one night and then I'm like staying in their apartment, and like I hung out with Lemmy and now I'm like following him on the road. He's just like he's got some incredible people skills, and I respect that.
And you'll probably agree. And I was talking to GN'R about this. I
Mhm.
feel like everyone owes Lars an apology for
Yeah,
Napster. I mean, he
yeah,
was right. Look what's happening now, and everyone complaining about Spotify and
yeah.
residual checks. And they were right. They weren't doing it for their own greed. They saw what was coming.
They saw it was coming. They were, I mean, there's, people didn't hear them on this, but they said, look, we're losing more money from the lawyers than we are from, Napster. It's about the next bands. And now people applaud, I think rightfully, Taylor Swift or Neil Young when they take stances about it. But yeah, they were right. And Lars did get a lot of crap for that. And yeah, I think one other thing about that too that I figured out when I wrote the book and started getting responses to that is that nobody under the age of 30 gives a shit. Like, like you and I, and I'm sure like whenever I bring up Metallica, like someone's like Napster, like Lars sucks. Like I've never heard the end of like Lars and Napster from people in our age group. Nobody cares. No one who's never had to buy a CD and never had to like save up for one and like thought that they were too expensive cares about that story. And I think that that's kind of it's sort of fading from like it's becoming increasingly a small part of the Metallica story as I guess increasingly less negative part of the Metallica story as time has passed. I'd say.
Because they were proven right.
Yeah.
They were right, and it's
Yeah,
so very cool. I mean, I'm so excited to hopefully see them again. They'll be doing this for a long time.
yeah.
Do you know if any of the guys read your book at all? Do you know?
Someone from Q Prime reached out to me. I sent it, so apparently they're aware of it, but I do not know if they have read it. I mean, they're, you're talking earlier about like the spectacle and how they do like Kimmel and stuff like that. In the last few years, they've definitely gotten more tight-lipped about interviews. I've noticed, and they, they used to always do a David Frick profile with Rolling Stone when they had a new album. They haven't done that yet, and they're kind of at the stage, like Taylor Swift or Beyonce, where they'll sell out a stadium no matter what, whether or not they promote it. So
or GN'R, they don't
or
care.
GN'R, exactly, who also don't really do interviews, right? So it's
No, they don't.
yeah,
Sometimes they get
so,
deleted after they're done.
yeah, they do get taken down, which I've been noticing too because I follow them. But yeah, I think they've gotten so if they did read it, I probably will never hear from them. But I just keeping my ear to the ground. I hope that at some point they just like as a sign of appreciation, like a labor of love for kind of like you in the podcast, just like doing this just because I love this thing and want it to be celebrated, right?
Sure. So Metallica, the 24.95 book, and what about Body Count?
Body Count.
Yeah, I
Also
know.
labor of love. My first pitch for the Metallica book was to the 33 and a third series, which there's a Guns N' Roses one. Do you know the 33 and a third books about it's a small books about famous albums.
Okay.
And I've been a big fan for a long time. I pitched a Metallica one, didn't get accepted, but I saved that pitch for something later on. And I've been a huge Body Count fan since high school. They were one of my first kind of like forays into punk rock. I had my sort of wave of Metallica, Guns N' Roses heroes, and then my sort of like Black Flag and Dead Kennedys heroes. So I got together a pitch for that book. It's coming out in September. I've got my first copies here. It was just so, and I got to talk to, unlike the Metallica book, I got to talk to a lot of my biggest heroes. I got to talk to Duff McKagan. I interviewed Henry Rollins, Joe Biafra, all the current Body Count guys. So Ice, Ernie, Juan of the Dead, Vincent Price,
wow,
Will Dorsey, Shawnee Sean.
Well, that's cool. So they were real. So unlike Metallica, they were cool to be a part of.
Ice-T is very famous, but he's not, and so is like Henry Rollins, but they're not like gazillion sellers, right? They're not like everybody knows who Ice-T is and has a sense of his persona and but they're not like, they don't have like a lot of like platinum records or anything like that. But
Oh, I mean, Ice-T, I mean, he's the actor. That's what he's really
yeah,
famous for.
exactly, yeah. And it's been kind of touching to see him say like, I get the money for the acting, but my love is doing the music. Like he's like, there's nothing better than being a rock star and just like being Body Count and getting that response. They're so important. It's such a great story. It was I just remember so many times over the years I'd see stuff in the news or with music and think like, why are more people talking about Body Count? They're so important. They're so influential. Or they'd say like, oh, they're just more controversial than good, or they're not like, or they're like a second rate. Like I totally disagree. I think they're a fantastic band. They deserve to be celebrated for being so ahead of their time, being persecuted for being right, kind of what Sinead O'Connor was, which also happened at the same time of the cop killer story. And yeah, just for being a totally musically groundbreaking band. I think lyrically, musically, and I delve into that in the book. But anyway, I love Body Count. I loved talking to so many, cool people for it. Oh yeah, Doc Hoyle, some of the Living Color guys, some of the Fishbone guys. It's been
oh wow,
been exciting. But yeah, it's a great story. I got talking about the book, and yeah, just I'll be doing some events in New York in September. So keep your eye out for that. I'll be doing some Body
okay.
Count.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, once that happens, give me the dates and I'll share them and all that fun stuff. So yeah, I mean think about it. That's your ultimate show, right? When it was Body Count, GN'R, and then Metallica. I mean,
I
that's the
think so.
ultimate.
I mean, yeah, I do. I mean, it's kind of funny that I also like this, maybe I'm jinxing it now. 2014, I pitched a Guns N' Roses book that did not get accepted either. So those are like my 3 things I've written about. But
don't give up.
say again.
Don't give up.
No, well, I didn't give up the Metallica one. I didn't give up Body. So I'm
Good.
holding on to that in my pocket for someday. But yeah, that is kind of like my ultimate. And I guess like I also like, I would have loved to have seen Nirvana on that tour, like the Plan. I would love to have seen Motorhead on that tour or Faith No More. I love all those bands very much. But yeah, Body Count, I guess it feels like a personal thing. I love having my sort of huge bands that everybody knows I can talk about, but I also love having my sort of like, called things like Body Count. And it's been interesting to write that because like, everybody you talk to has a Metallica connection, a Metallica story. But Body Count, people are like, well, what's that? Then you get to see their faces when they're like, wait a minute, it's Ice-T, and it's like, it got banned and it's metal. It's such an amazing story.
Right. I feel like people are just discovering that. They knew Ice-T was a rapper,
right,
and an actor, but I feel like Body Count, you don't know unless you are a rock fan. And it's so interesting because they put out new music. They won a Grammy, right? Or they were nominated. They won a Grammy.
They've had, and even as like a big diehard Body Count fan, I never saw this comeback coming. Like I was kind of like, by the time I got them, they were pretty much broken up, and I was like, okay, well, the first record's the classic and stuff like that, and more power to them. But they sound great now, and the new songs are great, and they're playing to their biggest crowds, and they're doing huge festival shows, and yeah, it was a lot of fun to talk about that. I had Duff told me some fun stories about bringing his daughter to see Body Count now, and she likes like the new songs like Bitch in the Pit and stuff like that. And they're it seems like a real kind of validation for all the work they did for marginalized people and for just blending genres. Just like, I talked to people who were like, I'd never heard that kind of combination of punk and metal before. Like, and they're just I think they're such a great band. I mean, I'm gushing because I have but I
do you talk about Duff's relationship with Ernie C? Like went to each other's wedding? Like a lot of people don't know that. Like their kids know each other. They go way back.
Duff is Duff, by the way, like I wish every interview could be like Duff. He was on time, so nice, so cool. I tried at one point to have to be like, by the way, Duff, like Guns is like my, and he's like, oh, thanks. And he was just super nice. Yeah, he knows Ernie. He knows Ernie's family. They went to the wedding. He had some stories about he was an Ice-T fan of his rap career, like Power, back in the early 80s. And he's like, yeah, and I went to his house. I met Body Count. They're all really nice guys. And he also said at one point, he's like, by the way, like, forgive me, like I don't have a good memory for 91 or 92. He's like, I just kind of have it back then, like, and but yeah, he also said, and he was the only one to say this to me, and I don't think this was a cop out or anything, but I said, so what do you think of body count now, right? Like their sort of cultural significance, history, like what do you think of how I stand in the world? And Duff was like, I don't really have a great answer for that. He was like, I need some time to think about it. He says, if I were writing a book, I might have thought about it more, but I kind of take music as it is and can tell you why I like it and why it's good or important. But he said I would need more time to think of a good answer for that. And he didn't like gush to say something like, well, I think body counts, like, he just like, he took time with his answers. And but yeah, he was a nice guy. He's a very thoughtful, had kind things to say about Ernie. He said that he thinks of Ice as kind of like a Lemmy type, sort of like a walks like he talks it,
Yeah.
just a badass, guy. And he
Yeah, I could see that.
very but yeah, very, very nice dude, had kind things to say about the guys in the band and their comeback. And he invited them to that tour, actually, the 91
Right.
tour. So yeah, it was a real, the two interviews I could not sleep before were Ice-T and Duff McKagan. Who I didn't know what I was gonna say to him. Yeah.
Would you have a date? You said that's coming out in October?
September 7th.
Oh,
So,
September.
so
Okay.
September
I'm
7th.
distracted. You want to give them to me? You want to give me Baby Brownstone so I can hold
Yeah.
them? You want to do that now?
Baby
I tried to
Brownstone.
hold him before, so this will be
Yeah.
added.
Yeah.
You fed him? So great. He'll throw up on me. All right. He's naked. Well, he has a diaper on.
Hey, buddy. Yeah.
Yeah, look at Baby Brownstone.
Hey, Baby
Oh,
Brownstone.
his head is
Weekend
not as
dancing,
wobbly.
Baby. Aw.
I asked the question recently because people are like, "Oh, I'm surprised you didn't play him, Appetite for Destruction in the Womb or stuff like that." I don't know. I'm just not. I was. You hear that? He burped. Look at that. That's my boy. That's my boy.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about an age. Give me an age where I can sit him down and be like, "This is Guns N' Roses. This is one of the greatest albums." And I'll do the same thing with Metallica and just rock. When's an appropriate age? He's 3 months, so he's got time. He doesn't know what's what yet.
They have, as I'm sure you know this from like following them obsessively, but they have a kid appeal that other bands of their. I guess when you're that huge, you have to have that kind of crossover thing. But
Sorry.
Every year, I teach college. Every year, I get students wear Guns N' Roses shirts,
right?
And go to their shows, and they crossed over to kids in a way that other bands don't. I think that's part of why they are huge. Is that like you can be a kid and love Guns N' Roses, and hear what's great about them pretty easily.
I have played him the lullaby version.
Oh yeah.
That's pretty great. I wish I got the entire thing on camera because it probably would have went viral. He was crying.
Oh yeah.
And I put on the lullaby version of "Don't Cry," and he stopped.
Oh.
But then Civil War came on and started freaking out. So I don't know what that means. Yeah. And I think I've said this before. When I've said Baby Brownstone as a joke, his name is Harrison Rex. Right. People are like, "You're that hardcore. You named your kid Brownstone." No, I still get comments like that. No, I did not name him after heroin. It's just stuff. I like alliterations. It's clever.
Yeah.
Funny. So I want to, before we wrap up and get out of here, and while he's calm, I just want to, because we mentioned body counts they're always making new music. Metallica, they're playing new music.
Right.
So Guns N' Roses, it's kind of like Ross and Rachel. Will they or won't they?
Right.
And I had felt that they are going to release 1 or 2 singles. That was not good. That was not good. I think he got upset because he's like, I don't want perhaps. I want brand new material.
Right.
I literally did nothing. I was holding him. He started freaking. Yeah. Jesus Christ. Oh man, that is one of the worst things though about parenting so far in 3 months. He said he'll be calm, he'll be smiling, everything's fine, diaper change, fed, and just freak out out of nowhere. Maybe he's like Axl Rose, like the 90s Axl Rose that way, but holy shit.
Acting,
But
that guy and take that, you know.
yeah, so maybe I'll leave that in there. But that might sorry if that hurts your ears or whatever, but
No
it's
worries. Yeah,
part.
no worries.
So it's I've said it's gonna happen, and there's been articles about them rehearsing, perhaps people outside of sound check. This is a song that was written during the Chinese democracy era, and there have been song titles that have been around for years at this
Yeah,
point. Perhaps it's just one of them. And tell me if Metallica fans are this crazy when new music is coming out.
right.
That it was discovered, a link was discovered that where does it go to? It goes to like was it Capitol Records, or it's like it's I should have had this
Mhm.
completely up. If I'm going right now, I'm going through mygnrforum.com, which is the friggin' best, by the way, where I get like
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Also, cited in my book too. I got some info about body count from there. So
oh nice.
yeah.
So I mean it's as a link to. It's just it's a link to. It's what I guess what it's called, whatever that means. So
Mhm.
people nerdier than me. So I'm gonna give credit to a couple people because I asked this question. I'm like, how do people just find this random link that shows that perhaps it's gonna be released on Friday, August 11th?
Right.
How is that found? It's not like Guns N' Roses social media just posted it and deleted it really quick and we got it. So this is from Twin Ale Blood on my GNR. People have been trying to open up the perhaps link fire for weeks just to check if it got activated. The one for Hard School started to work a few days before the official release. The other day, someone tried it as usual, and it was now displaying the work in progress page with the countdown. So there is a countdown. There is like a magic 8 ball graphics that goes along to it. I also want to quote GNR Chris. So thank you guys for your answers. So link was a redirect from GNR's link fire. People have been randomly checking it. For example, take the URL and it gives you that and add something to the end. So you can look for Hard School when it came out, or the
Right.
General to see if that eventually populates, or
Mhm.
perhaps. So I mean, kudos to you fans. My God, that is some sleuthing.
Oh
That is
yeah.
some shit. Like I thought I'm hardcore. That's why I will never be the most hardcore Guns N' Roses fan, no matter how many episodes I do.
Oh yeah.
I am not those guys or
Yeah.
gals doing that.
Mhm.
Wow. So that's what we're rumored to get. We'll see. Perhaps not. So
Right.
it's just, is there anything like this in the Metallica fandom when it comes to new music?
Yeah, it's different with Metallica fandom. It's always a huge event when a record comes out. They don't come out very often. There are definitely like
They don't come out very
in-depth.
often. Look who you're talking to.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a very good point. I should have said that, but yeah, there's definitely like an obsessive fandom. There's definitely like, I was always kind of like in my circle, like the Metallica guy, or like the Guns N' Roses guy. So I was just like, oh yeah, I'm a huge fan. And then the book comes out, or like you do research for the book and just like, oh wow, people are just like so in depth about this band, like doing, all sorts of rabbit holes, all sorts of things like that for new Metallica or what this means. Yeah, I'd say not the same for like there's nothing that I can think of like all those Chinese democracy demos like Silkworms and things like that floating around, or like the General, or like perhaps, or there's nothing quite along those lines, but yeah,
Right.
there's definitely like
Have there been Metallica leaks?
yeah, oh totally. Yeah, there've
There
been
have been? Okay.
Death Magnetic got leaked before it came out. I remember early word about Lulu, which I'm one of the only people who likes. I remember
Okay.
things like that. Oh yeah, I remember that's how Napster got started, was I Disappear leaked. There's a demo of I
Um,
Disappear, so that and that was like an early internet clamor, and ours was like, what's this? And it got played on the radio when it was in demo form. But yeah, it's I guess yeah, there's definitely that level of obsessiveness, but I guess sleuthing over different things, and like the kind of like craving for new music for Guns N' Roses, or like what happened to like the Chinese democracy demos and things like that. I don't think that there's like an equivalent thing in Metallica, I don't think.
are you any more shows in your future for
Yeah, I'll be
Metallica?
going to Guns N' Roses, of course. I'm a surprise birthday present for the lady taking her to Springsteen, and
Nice.
we're doing Depeche Mode. I guess. Oh yeah, Madonna. So got a few things like that going on,
But are you following Metallica around that at all?
I am not following them around. I'm looking at next year. I might, visit people in Chicago or Boston to go back to see them there. So,
Cool.
yeah, I'll do stuff like that depending on, where I'm with teaching and things like that. But yeah, I guess those are like the big ones off the top of my head.
Okay.
Yeah,
So maybe I'll bump into Guns N' Roses
that'd be awesome.
and yeah, next week.
Yeah, coming up.
Or
Yeah.
just over a week.
Yeah, with the Pretenders. Oh yeah, I'm also going to some of the hip hop 50th anniversary shows like with Run DMC and Snoop and things like that. So
Okay,
things
cool,
like
cool.
that. But
Right on. So is any website you want to direct people to? You're at BAP.
yeah,
You have an interesting handle, so I want to say, how do
go
you
for it.
say it?
It's Bapatoff,
Ba-
Bapatoff.
Okay.
You reminded me actually when you were saying in radio, I'd forgotten to mention that my college radio show was called Apatoff for Destruction. And
Apatoff for Destruction. You
yeah,
should have let off with that. Oh man, I
that was
love
my
that.
show. Yeah, I had that. That was my blog where I first started my writing about my Metallica and Guns N' Roses stuff and body count. So yeah, there's that. Yeah, check
Funny.
out my I've got a bookshop.org page where I have my books and also book recommendations of metal stuff. I've got Catherine's book up there. I've got DX Ferris, who wrote a great Slayer book and coached me through mine. I've got an Instagram page that's Metallica book, just all one word. It's not exclusively Metallica stuff. I put my body count stuff too. I've got some stories about those guys up there. So yeah, I guess that's my Twitter, my Instagram, my books website on a bookshop. But yeah, body count's available for pre-order. Metallica is in stores already. If you want to reach out on social media, I do not get tired of talking about any of these bands. I'll happily indulge you. So yeah, just appreciate the support.
Cool, man. Well, Ben, I'm glad we were able to make this happen, and I
Yeah,
appreciate you coming on. And I hope we get to do this again.
definitely.
Obviously, that does it for this episode of Appetite for Distortion. Next one, I just told you who it's going to be. It's going to be Janet Gardner from Vixen,
Mhm.
which is very cool. I'm actually going to also have one of the producers from I Want to Rock as
Oh,
my
great.
co-host, Chad Gervich. So it was like funny. I responded to an ex of do you know Greg Renoff, the author Greg Renoff?
Yes. Okay. Yes. Yeah. I know.
He's the Van Halen version
Yeah.
of you, basically.
Yes.
So he had, I guess he tagged him in something, and I was just commenting on his, him talking about the documentary. And Chad saw this producer saw that I praised it, that I liked it. And then he emailed me at the afdshow@gmail.com. And he's like, I can help you get an interview. Let's make this happen. And so kudos to him. He got me Janet. And
That's
it was just so funny watching that doc and kind of feeling good about myself. And thank you.
Yeah.
It made me feel good when you said you used me as a source. I'm like, look at this. I interviewed everybody in this major documentary. Not at the same depth that, a documentary, but still I had him on. I
You're
also,
good work.
I also, I also want to mention, I have put out a couple new episodes of my horror spinoff. Are you a horror fan at all?
I'm a huge horror fan, actually. Yeah. So
All right. Favorite horror movie?
that's a good question. My totally boring, conventional first thing that comes to mind is The Shining. I love, love, love The Shining. There are a lot of if you want to talk about more obscure stuff, I love like a variety of slasher movies and or giallo movies or anything like that. Do you have a horror favorite? Like a
Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Oh yeah, that's a classic. Yeah, yeah.
It's
You
a
know,
special place in my heart.
yeah, that's it's a great genre. It's a big part of the Metallica in the Body Count stories because Kirk has a huge horror collection. He's written
Right.
some books about it. And Ice-T is also a huge horror guy. And
I know.
wrote on my socials today. I wrote about because William Friedkin just passed, and Kirk Hammett and Ernie C and Ice-T all have quotes about loving The Exorcist. I posted that stuff for there.
So speaking of perfect segue. So speaking of The Exorcist, I just put out a new episode written by an author, Nat Segaloff, and he was a publicist when The Exorcist first came out, and he also did he did a biographer of the director, who happened to pass away today,
Oh yeah.
which is pretty spooky that I happened to post this episode the same day that
Oh,
William Friedkin
yeah.
passed away. And Slash recognized, same thing with Dell James, two also big horror guys.
Oh
So if
yeah.
you like horror as well, Appetite for Horror also available, that you can watch episodes on the Appetite for Distortion YouTube page. So
Oh.
whether it's to find out about new interviews or new Guns N' Roses news, the conversation always continues, or find out about new horror episodes in between the broadcast and social media. So follow Appetite for Distortion, Facebook, Twitter, X, whatever it wants to call itself, Instagram, even TikTok. I'm going to use, I'm slowly breaking Baby Brownstone in.
Oh yeah.
Like, you got to not get camera shy. There are so many babies making their parents money. I got to teach him.
Yeah.
Like, I got to, if I could teach him the words to like corn shucker, I think I have a viral hit. I might be a bad parent, but I think it would be a viral hit. So anyway, so that does it for this episode of Appetite for Distortion. When we see the next one, in the words of Axl Rose concerning Chinese democracy, I don't know if soon is the word, but you'll see it.